everyone, and welcome to You Matter Consultant Podcast. My name is Rejoice. If today's your first time on our show, please make sure you subscribe to all of our social media channels, especially Spotify. Today, we have the special privilege of speaking with Michael. And Michael is actually the founder and CEO of RetireUS. I would love for him to also introduce himself as he sees fit, and we'll dive right into the questions. So, Michael, the mic is yours, please.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. This is going to be a fun conversation to dive into some of these topics. My name is Michael Scarpati. I've been the founder and CEO of RetireUS for a handful of years now, but I come from the financial services industry. So 15 years in financial services, particularly financial planning, independent fiduciary financial planning, which is a little bit of a unique subset in the industry. And that background and that knowledge from being in the industry, working with different families, a lot of high net worth individuals, kind of go through this track. RetireUS was really founded to make high quality, independent fiduciary advice accessible to everybody instead of just the 1% to 2% of wealth earners. And so that's the mission of the company is to come in here and disrupt today's financial services industry with a better path to financial freedom for everyone.
Exactly. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And we'd love to learn more about your journey. And if you could take us back, like what first drew you into the world of finance? And how did your journey evolve into founding an amazing company?
Yeah, thanks for that question. It's been a ride. It's been a little bit of a ride, that is for sure. It probably really goes all the way back to childhood, where I come from a unique circumstance where my parents split at a very young age, and they both had very different perspectives and relationships on money. My mom came from a family where my grandfather actually, he was a banker, but he started out as the janitor of a bank, and he worked his way up to ultimately becoming the chairman and CEO of that same bank. And with that, there was a couple of things that kind of trickled down to me, which was banker mentality is definitely kind of a pack rat mentality when it comes to money. It's very savings, frugal, accounting for every single dollar. And so at a young age, that relationship with money and that consciousness around finances was definitely very present in my life. And at the same time, that entrepreneurial spirit, seeing my grandfather work his way through the starting kind of at the bottom and really creating something where then he was the vision, the chair of this bank, and he expanded the bank. And so there was a lot there. And then same on my dad's side, different type of relationship with money, not kind of the strict, kind of the other way, free spirit when it comes to finances, but also entrepreneur. He's an entrepreneur in the comedy industry, also in the health and wellness industry. And that entrepreneurial bug, you kind of merge those two together, marry those two together. Independent financial planning was a really good track for me to kind of jump into business. It kind of gave me both of those sides of the coin. And that's kind of where it all started, being in the industry of financial planning and seeing how it works and where it serves people really well, and where the mass majority of this market right now is actually underserved, because it's not really built for the average American, and that's kind of what started it all.
Michael, your story is so fascinating to me. As you're talking, what came to mind is rich dad, poor dad, the different mentalities as you're describing your parents. And oftentimes people don't associate these concepts with marriage, but it does show up in how people lead their families and so forth. So thanks for sharing.
That's a great call out. Great read, by the way, if anybody, has not, because it's all about perspective, right? And that's the thing, is our relationship with financials and money is all built and ingrained in us from childhood. And fortunately for me, I grew up in an environment where there was two wildly different perspectives on money. And so it allowed me to kind of find my own middle ground of how, I want to approach it. Whereas most people kind of generally have one voice that is unified around how we approach money as a household. And so, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a great perspective in that as well. So great call out.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back to what you said. You started your career 15 years in the financial industry. What key lessons did you sort of learn that shaped your entrepreneurship mission?
Whew. Key lessons. Patience. I
With
think
all that,
patience.
right?
I think patience is kind of the biggest one. As entrepreneurs, you tend to think big. You have visions for the future that you want to manifest and create, and you have this excitement around it, and it never happens as quickly as you imagine it will. And being able to maintain that vision with patience and grace, I think, are some of the biggest lessons that I've learned just over time. You really got to get used to things. We can, I heard a quote that was like, along the lines of we dramatically overestimate how quickly we can accomplish things, but we underestimate how much we can do over a long period of time, right?
Mm.
So you overestimate how much you can do in a year, but you underestimate how much you can do in 5 generally. And that is very true in entrepreneurship. I found that to be very, very true. When we look back to see where we were 5 years ago, it's incredible how different. It's a quantum leap in terms of where we've moved this organization. And things are obviously, a slow trickle, right? As you kind of shift gears and move towards a direction. So I think that's probably the biggest lessons I can pull from.
I love that. Do you think patience is something that comes naturally or just through mistakes you develop it, or just curious?
Not through the Italian upbringing. No, obviously I joke. I think patience is like anything. I think it's a learned skill. I think it's a learned skill. It's something that obviously can bring a ton of value into all areas of life, but particularly business. Whether you're the entrepreneur or whether you're an employee in an organization, right? Having the ability to kind of take a breath is something that definitely I needed to learn over time. It was something that I was not naturally ingrained in my approach. And I think most people, myself included, kind of learn the lesson through acts of impatience. We go, all right, I kind of need to react differently to this. The impatience is not necessarily helping anything, right? It's all going to happen how it's going to happen, and all we can actually really control is our response to that. And I think there's a ton of value in it, but it's like a muscle, I think, that needs to be worked out over time.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Well said. Agreed. Thank you so much.
thanks.
Was there a personal turning point or moment when you sort of realized the traditional financial industry system needed to be disturbed?
Yeah, I think I can kind of pull it back to one moment. Actually, it's something that was rearing its head gradually over time being in the industry, and it was definitely a result of coming from, just to give you context, the independent financial planning channel. It's just a different approach to finances. Most people, when they think financial planner, financial advisor, they think investments, they think investment manager, and their mind goes immediately to products. And products should be the result of a plan, right? The
Mm.
plan should not be a result of products. Most people take an approach, because of the way the industry is structured, where it's product first, plan second. And on the independent channel, you're doing planning first, product second. And so as a result, you just see a lot of bad plans. And it's because there's a lot of stones that have been unturned still, right? Because when we focus first on product, our awareness of some of these other variables that are impacting the financial situation just go unaddressed. And so coming from that planning perspective and starting to meet with a lot of families and a lot of people that thought they had a really strong financial plan because they had a financial advisor, right? That's not true necessarily. Just because you have a financial advisor does not mean you have a financial plan. That was once I kind of saw that over and over and over. There was one particular family that was getting close to retirement. They had a financial advisor for many, many years, but the way things were set up, and for this particular instance, it had to do with they had a pension. And the way a pension works is you have this fixed income. You have basically you're getting a paycheck even when you retire from the company, but there's something called survivorship benefits that are really important that you need to be aware of for your spouse if you're married. And the way this was all established, once we really looked into the details, this particular family did not have any survivorship benefits on the husband's pension, and the husband's pension was a very integral part of their retirement income when all is said and done. And so if something were to happen to him, it would have dramatically changed things. And it was just something that was not addressed because they had focused on the investment products. They weren't focusing on the entire picture. And so that moment kind of shifted the mindset for me, at least initially, which was I need to help people see this from a little bit of a different perspective. And that kind of early in my financial advisory career started the journey towards where we are now, which was, all right, what if we could create a whole new model to make this planning first, product second, and give everybody access to that higher quality and that different perspective.
Yeah, that sounds extremely amazing. I can definitely understand why that's the case. If people are all about sell the product, there's no let's sit down and plan your life for the products. That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
And that's the way the industry just, we need to unlearn a lot. Right? I'm really on a mission to be a voice to help people understand the things about financial planning that we need to unlearn, right? We've been conditioned that it's stocks, bonds, mutual funds, insurance, annuity products, and that's what you do. You invest in your 401k, you get your mutual funds. And why is that the case? Well, it's because the industry is dominated by big institutions that are, guess what? Mutual fund companies.
Right. That's what they do, and that's what they're known for.
That's where the money flows, right? If the loudest voice in the room is the mutual fund company, and it's essentially almost every voice in the room is a big institution that they're in the business of getting you to buy their products, right? That's what we think about first when we think about our financial planning, and it's just incorrect. It's a wrong way to approach it because it leaves you vulnerable to missing a lot of things that you should be addressing first. And so that's a big part of this is we gotta help people see that there's more to this than just the investment products.
Michael, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you're adding an extra layer for the consumer to be self-educated or self-sufficient in understanding what's coming after their life or their finances or their retirement and so forth. So that educational piece to me sounds extremely lucrative. It's nice to have that because I don't think most people actually take time to learn about the products or the services or the person who's sort of helping them. They just take advice, and this is what you have to do.
Yeah, I mean it's two layers, I would say. It's financial literacy is the first layer, and then what I would call financial consciousness is the second layer. So financial literacy, on the RetireUS website, there's a ton of free resources to help you expand your literacy, right? Help you understand what the terminology is, what the accounts mean. But then the objective really of the platform is to create more financial awareness, right? So lifting your perspective and your consciousness around, well, what does this actually mean to me? How do these accounts, how do these tools, the products and the accounts are just tools, and right, not every scenario for you requires the same tool, right? If all you're using is a hammer, and it's because you don't know that there are other tools out there, you could use a screwdriver or you could use a saw, right? Sometimes, and we're just trying to hack away with a hammer instead of using a saw. Like, that's where most people are, unfortunately, when it comes to their approach with money, because they just don't know. They don't know what they don't know. They're unconsciously incompetent at the moment. And so a lot of what we're looking to do is help you get a better understanding of what else is out there. And these financial professionals that the platform will connect you with are absolute experts in doing that.
Fantastic. Looking forward to learning more on your website. Thanks for sharing. What does democratizing financial freedom means to you specifically? And how does RetireUS bring that to life?
Yeah, so it's democratizing financial guidance is really, again, it's just helping everybody see, like, how does this really work right now? So there's three types of financial professionals that you can work with. Most people have only ever heard of two. And that's because the third component, the third type, is reserved generally for the 1% to 2% of wealth earners. And democratizing financial guidance is about opening access up to that third type for everybody, regardless of your net worth, regardless of your investable assets, right? Regardless of your financial situation at the end of the day. And so that's what RetireUS is all about. It's giving you access to these highest level of fiduciary independent financial professionals without the traditional barriers to enter into that. So to kind of give you context, right? Three types of professionals: workplace benefits advisor,
Yes.
product advisor, systems-based fiduciary. Workplace benefits, most people are familiar with this one, right? Call the 401k line, boom, there we go. All they're going to tell you is about your workplace funds, right? The things that you can use there. It's beneficial, but it's super limited. Second is the product-based financial professional, and this is what dominates the industry, right? 80 to 90% of when we think financial professional, this is what we're talking about. They're investment advisors, right? They're giving you advice on where to put your money and how to invest that appropriately. Now, the issue is that most of them are not fiduciaries, which means most of them don't actually need to give you advice legally that's in your best interest, if you can believe that. That's how the industry actually works. Because they don't work for you. Most of them don't work for you, right? They work for the investment institution. They don't work for you. And so that's where this independent track starts to get some teeth, right? The problem with the product advisors, the independent fiduciary ones, is that they have asset minimums in the industry, right? They move up market. They have $250,000, $500,000, $1 million asset minimums just to take a meeting with you. And so most people are priced out of the market. And then that third type is the one that almost everybody's never even heard about, which is the systems professional. These people aren't managing money. They are building you complex systems to make sure your financial aspects of your life are all working in harmony, and it's changing your decision making, your behavior of how you actually operate and execute your finances. So how your current cash flow impacts your long-term tax ramifications versus how those savings in your 401k need to work alongside things during your short-term goals. All those different, that roadmap, that is generally should be the basis of our decision making. But those professionals charge 5-10 grand a year, and most people are priced out of the market, right? And so what RetireUS does is we kind of sit in the middle, and we give you access to the systems-based professional at a fraction of the industry standard cost. Our basic planning tier starts at under $60 a month instead of a $10,000 price tag. And you're connected with independent product advisors that are fiduciary that don't have asset minimums. So you can vet the entire marketplace. You can use all sorts of advanced products, but you don't need a $500,000 to qualify.
That sounds so cool. And I'm very fascinated to learn from you because you mentioned the traditional financial products are sort of not made for the average American. So I'm just curious, what role does trust play in financial planning, especially for the underrepresented communities that this may not have been accessible for them?
Trust is everything, right? Trust is everything. The problem is it's hard to come by in the financial services industry at the moment. And that's really what we're here to change, right? The biggest, some data that we looked at when we did some market research is the vast majority of people, 80+% of people, say that they would value financial guidance from a professional. Yet
Hmm.
only about 33% actually do. And we wanted to dig into, well, why is that the case? There's a number of reasons, but the major reason is trust. People do not know who to trust. And guess what? It makes a ton of sense. They shouldn't trust anybody in this industry, right? We've just kind of covered why that's the case. Most of the professionals that are out there do not represent you, and they don't have any legal obligation to represent you. That's the big challenge. And the funny thing is that may not be super clear to the public, but intuitively we all feel it, right? And which is why we have these trust issues with financial professionals. And so the independent fiduciary solves that. The independent fiduciary is legally obligated. You can take them to court if you feel like they have breached your best interest standard. You can literally take them to court. They can lose their licenses, right? They have skin in the game and accountability to work in your best interest in the eyes of the law. And that allows us to bypass the mistrust factor, because we can now rely on, we can trust them because they're legally obligated to do right by us. The platform, the RetireUS platform, connects you with professionals that have that credential, and that's I think the major key.
Such a game changer. And I'm so appreciative that you mentioned the platform, which I'm also curious to ask you, since we're in the age of AI technology, how is RetireUS leveraging technology to sort of make financial planning more accessible and more personalized to everyone?
That is an incredible question, because there's a couple of layers to it that really make it possible what we're able to do, right? The biggest question I generally get around, well, how is this possible? How are you guys able to create this accessibility at the price points and at the no asset minimum levels? And the reason is the technology that we've
Mm.
built. So there's two components of it. The first is on the user side, right? On the consumer side, we've just created a very easy model for you to get started, right? One of the biggest roadblocks outside of trust is just the time and effort factor for people.
Yes.
It's just a lot. It feels like a
Yes.
lot of heavy lifting. And traditionally, the industry makes it that way, where it's this giant overhaul of all of your finances. You got to spend hours digging through statements and all. It's like nobody wants to do that, even though they know financial planning is important. They're like, I don't want to do that. And who can blame them? Like, I don't want to do that either. And so what we did is we built technology to segment it in a way that we could streamline the process for, let's talk about the most important stuff first. We don't need to talk about all of it right now. There's key components that we need to address to get you started in the process, and we can minimize the lift. So it only takes about 10 to 15 minutes for somebody to upload, get all of the data that we require to have a first meeting around their financial goals and the analysis of those goals with a financial professional. So we've created tech to just make it easier for the consumer, is kind of the first part.
That's
Um,
super excellent. Excellent. Because as you were speaking, I started rethinking back when I met with a financial advisor. I'm like, really? I don't really have time to be thinking about, and
right.
it's not something that most people are pleasant and happy to look at their finances and sort of analyze every detail. So it definitely will be a game changer for those on the platform. Is your platform something that it can attract people who are not ready today? Or do you need someone who's ready for fiduciary advice today?
That's a great question. So there's a free mindfulness tier that isn't going to connect you with that fiduciary professional yet, but it's going to unlock resources and give you some tools to start becoming more financially conscious. So we have a financial checkpoint that is part of that free mindfulness tier. It's about a 4-minute quiz, multiple choice assessment. And what it's going to do is give you some baseline analytics on your retirement pacing, your tax planning, your overall risks. And then it pulls out these it pulls out these financial red flags. And the financial
Mm,
red flags are kind of the blind spots, right? These are the things that fall into that category of unconsciously incompetent at the moment. These are areas where we need to start to educate ourselves and build our awareness around a little bit more. And so it works as a really good starting point for people to just build the foundation, that free mindfulness tier. And then when they're ready, they can always upgrade that tier to something like basic planning to start interfacing and working with the professionals themselves.
I like that a lot, especially those who want to test the waters. Like, okay, is this something I should do right now? And I guess going along with what you're describing with the technology you have built for your software, maybe you can clarify for us, do you use AI for decision making on certain services, products, or do you rely on the fiduciary person who's sort of the financial planner?
Yeah, so we that's a really good question. I think that's one of the big things that people are getting a little bit apprehensive about. Again, back to some of the market research we did, about 85% of consumers, they want guidance from a human.
Yes.
They want guidance from a human. So that's the big difference between our platform. Right now in the age of AI, you're getting a lot of robo platforms where
Right.
you never meet with anybody, you fill out a questionnaire, and then a robot's doing everything for you. And the interesting thing is that there is a market for that. The younger markets for sure are more and more comfortable with that. But the vast majority of like millennial, Gen X, boomer, plus, we still want people.
Right.
We want humans.
We don't
Right.
trust the technology yet.
Yeah, exactly. And so what we use it as an augmenter, right? That's kind of the other aspect of the tech, right? As a platform, we're serving two markets. We're serving the consumer to make it as frictionless and easy as possible to get started and work with a professional. And we are serving independent fiduciary advisors, making it as frictionless and easy as possible to serve the client, right? And to deliver high quality advice. And so we use technology as an augmenter, as something to facilitate more of the mundane administrative tasks and data analysis to get the human professional the information that they need so that they can then make the decisions knowing kind of the human component of the user on the other side, right? I think that's what gets missed with the robo is there's a lot of nuanced things around humanity and emotional temperature that a robot will never fully understand, right? And so we use the two, but at the end of the day, the planning is being done by humans.
Amazing. I think this is such a revolutionized idea and concept. As you're speaking, my mind cannot stop wondering what are some of the metrics you're looking at on a day to day basis or quarterly or yearly basis. But I'm sure on the back end, you guys have all of that covered. So I want to also shift gears a little bit into your nonprofit work.
Oh,
So
great.
you work with OWL shows your commitment to equality beyond your business. How does your nonprofit work inform your for-profit adventures or vice versa, if you can clarify for us?
Sure. Yeah. So just to fill the audience in, the nonprofit One with Earth is kind of the full name. We go by O.
Okay.
We'll play on words. It's kind of like what we owe to those that are less fortunate to us, and it's really about humanitarian support. Not necessarily aid, right? We would call it humanitarian support because what the objective of the organization is to do is to build systems, right? Kind of
Mm,
back to that systems idea, but for people, systems, we need systems. And in impoverished communities, that's generally what we see. There's a lack of systems that create sustainability and ultimately create independence. And so O is very much about going into these impoverished communities and building out foundational systems that can allow people to kind of lift themselves up, right? We'll be there to be support of the basic needs, but then how do we start to actually build infrastructure? And then in today's world, it actually comes down to connectivity, right? Connectivity to the global economy and education that's outside of the local area or geography where these communities are based. And so Haiti is the place where we work directly right now. My wife, Kara, is one of the co-founders of the organization. She's a nurse practitioner and has been doing work in Haiti for over a decade at this point, and has built a giant community down there. Together, we founded O back in 2019 after we did a collective trip down there to just support some of the communities that we saw needed some help. And we're really fortunate. We just partnered, something that we're really excited about. We just partnered with the Haitian American Caucus, which is a powerhouse organization in Haiti, and they've been doing work formally since 2012. And really excited for that partnership. It's just going to expand our reach and expand our resources and allow us to offer some really great tax incentives to donors that are out there. Anyone who wants to contribute.
Amazing. And I love the collaboration between you and your wife on this mission. As chairman of OWL, what financial patterns or barriers have you seen in underserved communities that you're actively working to dismantle?
I mean, it's wild when you really start to look globally into some of these other countries and cultures, and just the way that people have gotten a raw deal. It's like it's just so the big thing that for me really stuck out when I went to Haiti for the first time was just how fortunate we are over here in the States. And even in a lot of the impoverished areas here, there is still some level of a path locally, right? There are ways and resources that give us a little bit more of an opportunity than when you go to these places like Haiti, where there is no, I mean, these areas have no economy. That's it. There's not even a local economy. So even if there's no public education. There's no public education. So, if you don't have external support, you can't even, as a child, you can't even go to school, right? Unless the community creates something. And so and if you're an adult, there's really no local economy for most people. So it's in such an impoverished state that the only real lane that I see to be able to really lift a lot of the people out of there is we got to connect them globally. We got to use technology now to connect people to other economies, because the local economies down there it's really non-existent for most people. And there's just no opportunity. That's the problem. It's not even are there marginalized opportunities. It's zero for most people. And so that's why this work really is important. Most people, I think, haven't seen the true nature of there's no way for them to pull themselves out of the situation without support and new systems and new resources being pulled in so that we can build a better way. And I think that's the major key that we're working with, everyone that we can to start unlocking more and more resources. And it's doing it in a way that is not creating dependency, right? I think that's where most nonprofits and most charities, unfortunately, kind of get stuck in this loop where they're not building new systems. They're just supporting, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, they need that. It's how do we take that to the next level where we can start to build things where it breaks this cycle of poverty, right? It's a cycle of poverty that will not end unless we an external force comes in to create some steps out of the cycle to break it. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. And to be honest with you, Michael, I can tell as you're speaking, you're a purpose-driven individual.
Yeah,
And,
thank you.
I'm also curious to find out from you what's been your biggest challenge in building a mission-driven French tech company as US retire.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the challenge is generally just finding other mission driven people, right? The good news and the thing that I'm extremely grateful for is that everybody in our organization is mission driven, right? It's not, in my opinion, mission driven entrepreneurship is the path of least resistance to success, because at the end of the day, if you're doing it for the mission, if that's really the thing that's driving things forward, it's easier to weather the storms. It's easier to be patient. It's easier to kind of trust and have faith. At the core, human beings are good, right? That's my perspective on it. And at the core, if we're trying to do things that help our fellow brothers and sisters in life, like that will resonate with people and more people will get on board. And I think if it's not without its challenges because it's not for everybody, right? Not everybody feels that way, but I think at the core, most people do, right? I truly have faith that most people do. And so I think that the biggest challenge is just finding those like-minded people, right?
Mm,
Continuing to cut through the noise and not get pulled into, like, the challenge is to not get sucked out of the mission, right? And not let the noise pull you away and the stress of, financials and things that obviously play a role, um, like shifting your focus and like taking you away from the center of like what you're really trying to do at the end of the day and what we're collectively looking to accomplish, right? Because the noise is loud and it always will be.
especially
So
when you're disturbing ecosystems, right?
there's a lot of factors that don't want things to be disturbed, but it is what it is.
You're brave. I must admit, you are very brave.
So
So,
thank you.
Michael, what does success look like for you in the next 5 years? Not just with Retire US, but also the communities that you serve.
Yeah, I mean, I think to take it to I think for all of it, it's about the communities that we serve at the end of the day. That's how I look at it. With we're serving impoverished communities, and it's really about getting them to a bigger state of independence. With this partnership with HAC, Haitian American Caucus, we're really focused on expanding down in southern Haiti in an area called Lakai, which right now Haiti's in a very challenging position with gang violence. The president was assassinated. The government has essentially fallen in most areas of the capital, which Port-au-Prince, which is where we also operate, and we manage an orphanage up in that area. What we're looking to do is create space of new area that's safe, that can allow for us to start building these systems and sustainability. Like, I think there's a lot of opportunity in Haiti to economically thrive. It just needs some help to get there. And so over the next 5 years, from that, the impoverished communities, our goal is to have, at least an area down in southern Haiti that is fully sustainable, fully independent, and is operating and living in kind of like a reality of abundance versus the scarcity that's the norm right now. Um, on the RetireUS side, our goal is to IPO. Our goal is to take the company public by 2030, and give everybody access. Make this. We don't want to be acquired by a bigger company. We want to make this a real lane for everybody to get high quality advice. And so we're not interested in just taking some sort of an exit. We want to IPO the company and make it a publicly traded company for it to be a household name that everybody can use and get the guidance they deserve.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here with us. And everybody heard it first here by 2030. That's the goal.
That's the goal. That's the goal. I don't know if it'll happen, right? I got to be patient. We got to be patient. May not be the case, but we got to draw the line in the sand somewhere.
Yes, it will happen. I have faith that this is going to happen for you. Do you have any last minute thoughts, Michael, as we close for today? And where can people reach out to you if they want to stay connected to your business or the communities that you serve?
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, the only final thoughts are thank you for having me. This was such a fun convo. It's always great to just speak with people that are also passionate about these subjects. So thank you for having me on the show for first and foremost. And yeah, I mean, if you want to keep in touch with what we're doing on the nonprofit side, we are owe.org. Same for Instagram. You can follow us on Instagram. We do a lot of updates on what we're doing. You can kind of see right from social media day to day, like things that are happening and things that we're accomplishing with that organization. And then retire.us is at retire.us too on socials, on Instagram, on LinkedIn are two areas that we'll be doing a lot of content and work to keep spreading the word and spreading the news. So those are great places to visit us. And retire.us, you can get started for free with the financial checkpoint, free mindfulness tier, if you want to learn a little bit more about how you can improve your own financial situation.
Exactly. I know I'm going to sign up because I always want to improve.
Love
So
it.
thank you so much, Michael. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, learning about your business, RetireUS, and also all the nonprofits that you're also driven to accomplish. Until next time, take care, everyone, and make sure you subscribe to all of our social media channels. Bye bye.
Thank you.